I want today's episode to be a beacon of light or hope for anyone who has maybe faced challenges or feel that their life now is written in stone and there's no changing it. You're broken, you're flawed, that you've messed things up so badly that there's no way out of this situation. I want to share some personal stories in today's episode to share how I went from that to totally transforming my life in a way that I never, ever, ever dreamt that I ever would. So, this is quite difficult for me to talk about. I'm quite nervous. My stomach is going, I have to say, as I record today's episode, which is very unusual for me. But last week, as I'm moving house soon, I started to clear out some drawers and cupboards and rooms, and I'm starting to have a cleanse, which is amazing. By the way, it feels so good to throw things out. And there's a drawer in my kitchen, a really deep drawer. It's kind of, the drawer that everything gets dumped into. So there's tea towels in there, keys in there, letters, all sorts. If I don't know where to put it, it goes in that kitchen drawer. And I don't think I've sorted that kitchen drawer out in at least 3 or 4 years. So you can imagine the build up. What was in it? It's a really big, thick drawer. And as I was sorting that drawer out last week, I came across my school reports from secondary school. So this is age 11 to 15. And it was really interesting to sit down and read them, and it brought back lots of memories and some painful memories, I will say. So this episode today might be triggering for some people. I am going to be a bit vulnerable. I'm not going to go too deep. I am going to share some of my feelings. So if you're not feeling up to listening to some sad stories, turn this one off. So I was reading back, and as a young child, I was always conscientious. I was always eager to learn. I did struggle, but I always had an enthusiasm for learning. I loved being in primary school, which was for me very safe. It was a environment where I felt nurtured by the teachers and by other pupils. We all kind of felt like we were the same kind of people, if that makes sense. And I always did well in primary school and I enjoyed it. Then when I went to secondary school, everything kind of changed. And what happened was it was a big culture shock, I guess, because I went to a very, very, very large school with completely different types of people, so diverse. So going from this very, very safe, tiny school to this big, massive school, and met people from all different walks of life that had experienced things that I had never come across before in my life. People who'd experienced really traumatic things at their age. And I was thinking, whoa, what is this world I'm living in? I had no idea. And I remember on my very, very first day of school, I went to go and get a snack from the canteen, which again was daunting when you've come from a primary school where you just get served everything at a dinner table. And then all of a sudden you've got to go to a canteen and hand money over. And, I'd never done those things before. And I remember being in the canteen looking out the window, and I just bought this pizza slice. And I was looking out the window and there were these two lads, kind of really tall. They must have been in the last year, I would say 15. And they were just punching the hell out of each other. And there was blood splattering everywhere. It was disgusting. And I was like, where am I? Like, what is going on? It was such a big, big shock to my system. And I was very conscientious in that first year, worked hard. I've got my record of achievement here, which was glowing. There's some lovely, you always make a real effort in class. You've shown great effort this year. Your effort has helped you in your achievements. It's been excellent. Your progress has gained you great skills. You've worked enthusiastically throughout the year. You've made every effort to improve. You've made excellent progress in all aspects. It was just like page after page, growing in confidence this year. Excellent start. You've always worked hard in class, completed all the tasks with such a high standard. And I could go on. Like every single page in that report was glowing. But what was happening alongside that was this transformation inside of me where I started to, it was the social aspect that started to derail me as a young individual. I was only 11 at this point, 11, 12. And I remember being in the queue for history. And I can remember this like it was yesterday. It was in a demountable. We were queuing up to go into history. And these three girls came up to me and they looked me up and down. They went, yeah, look at her. She's such a square. She would never miss school. And they just dismissed me and walked away. And it was just in that moment. And I remember that moment like it was yesterday, which shows how pivotal that moment was for me, because it was almost like I decided there and then that I don't want to be bullied for the next 5 years because of being a square and because I want to achieve. And it brings tears to my eyes now. And it was in that moment I decided that I wanted to befriend these people because it was a survival mechanism, because I could see them bullying others. And I just thought, I don't want to spend my next 5 years being bullied. And I went up to one of the girls the next day and said, would you like to miss school with me? I'd like to miss school. And then it went really rapidly downhill from then on. That was towards the end of that first year. So I had such a glowing report and then got in with these people. And unfortunately, I mean, my parents didn't, I look back now and I think it must have been such a shock for my parents, because one minute I am studious, I'm getting all these glowing reports, I am still playing with my Barbie dolls and so young and so naive. And I just don't think they were expecting such a transformation. And what happened then was I started to miss school with these girls and they knew these older boys. And I unfortunately got into a relationship. This was now at the age of 12. I got into a relationship with an older male who was 18. And unfortunately, that relationship was toxic, very, very toxic. I won't go into detail, but it was traumatic. It was really, really horrible. So within a very short time frame, I think of around 6 to 9 months, my life completely changed to then drinking with this boy, man, missing school, and getting up to really no good. And then it was such an interesting thing then to read the next year. So that was from year 7 to then reading the next year on, your school seems to have slackened this year. It's such a pity. You had real ability, and then I'm not satisfied with your progress at all. You could have worked harder in class. I feel that you have the capability to achieve, but somehow you don't appear to be motivated. Every page is her main problem is with tests. If you are to do well next year, you must revise carefully. You've approached your work with a pleasant attitude, but you've shown at times that you need more determination. What was it here? You need more determination is needed next year. And then there was one here that says, Michelle, you need to put yourself under more pressure. So on the feedback, I feel that you have grown in confidence, but you worry too much about what other people think of you. And so that was year 8. So that's when it all started to go a bit wrong. And then year 9, the following year, it's sad. So you need to learn to concentrate on the task in hand if you want to progress. So report after report is terrible. Unfortunately, your erratic attendance is difficult to comment on your progress. You have the ability, but we don't see you, basically, is what they're saying. It's a great pity that aspects of your life are interfering with your ability to concentrate and develop your mathematical skills. So it was just heartbreaking then to just see all these reports then just going downhill. And I actually didn't have one for the year after, because I then just stopped going to school. I would drop in and I would sign in for the register, and then I'd go off with this person that I was in this relationship with. And so it was a really distressing time, though, to sit and read those reports. And it was really distressing recently to read them back. And I got really teary because it made me realize in that moment, when that relationship ended, and it ended just as I was about to leave school. So it ended at the age of 15. So it was from 12 to 15, I was in that relationship. And, the relationship did not end well. It was quite a bad ending. And I knew in that moment that I'd missed so much school, and I was sitting looking at my reports, being told that I'm a failure, basically. And I'll never forget that when I ended that relationship, I had no friends. I felt like I'd lost everything. And at such a young age, I look back now to have gone through something like that. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, what have I done? I've basically chucked my life down the drain. And I tried so hard in that final year to go back to school. I remember sitting trying to catch up, but I'd missed so much school, my coursework, all the things that I'd missed. It was too much to catch up on. I had to go into like rehabilitation as well. And I had to go to this unit where, because I'd missed so much school, I couldn't integrate back into a classroom again. I had to go back and have like these one-on-one sessions to integrate me back and into learning. And it was really tough, actually. And then I also went to this amazing youth club. There was this youth club which was attached to the school, and again, that was to kind of integrate people in terms of social skills. And we used to go and do community service and clear out ponds and all this kind of stuff. I honestly hated it at the time. When I first got put into this, I was like, great. But it was one of the best things that ever happened to me, because it really did build my confidence back up as a person. And I get really emotional talking about this, because at that point, I'd lost confidence in everything, because, sitting reading reports like that and being told repeatedly, you should be doing better, you should be concentrating, you should be this, you should be that. It was so hard to read, especially having gone from being a person who'd had an amazing report in that first year, and so much emphasis on that and the pride that your parents have, and all that was lost. I just felt like no one was proud of me anymore. No one's proud for anything that I'm doing. And so when I did it was like the community service for children, it built my confidence up again. And I remember clearing out a big pond that people had littered with all sorts of terrible things. And we had to get waders on and go in and pull things out. And it was in that moment that I did something again, that someone could be proud of me. And I know we shouldn't do this, but we do. Sometimes we just want other people to just tap us on the back and go, yeah, well done. Well done. And especially as a young person, but I think still now, don't we? If we're being honest, we like to think that we don't care what people think, but it is nice to have someone recognize us and just go, yeah, that's great, or you did well. And so this is what happened to me when I did this community service, was giving back. And I think the feeling of giving back as well, and how that felt, was nice. And then to be recognized, that it went in the paper, and then all of a sudden I could see people around me like, wow, you did good, you cleared out a pool. But I remember, though, in that moment still feeling like I was really not good at anything, though. And I went back to school and I was working till 6 p.m. on my coursework, trying to catch up. And then I went in for my exams and failed all of them. I think there was only probably a couple, I can't remember, because I blocked it away, that I scraped a grade. And the harsh one for me was art, because in those reports, even when I was struggling, the one class I would go to sometimes was art. I'd go to social studies and I'd go to art, but the other ones I wouldn't bother going to. And the art ones, I used to get reports saying, you're above average. And that used to be like, oh my gosh, and, holding on to that. But then sadly, when I went through a really bad patch, I didn't go to art even. So I missed a lot of that. There was like a whole year that I probably missed of art. And so when I finally went back in that final year, I remember sitting my GCSE, and the final piece that you have to do, I was trying to replicate one that I did in the very first year where I got amazing results and I got A's. And I realized afterwards when I failed it that I was trying to be someone that I'm not anymore, and that other people in the class had progressed so much more than those first year pieces of artworks that we did. And I realized in that moment, oh my gosh, I have missed so much. And it was devastating. I think I cried and cried and cried for a long, long time at that age as well. It was really hard to go through. But what that did then was it led me to go into adulthood feeling like an absolute failure and feeling like I had no hope. So I kept trying to catch up and I kept trying to do things, and I would go back and study something and study something else. But I just always had this lack. I don't know. I think sometimes it was the dyslexia and the ADHD, which was later diagnosed as well, that was going against me. But I didn't know that at the time. Everything felt like a struggle and I felt really silly. And then it just manifested in really bad panic attacks and anxiety. And so as a young adult, then and then I stopped art when I failed it. I just saw that as a sign that there's no point me continuing with art because I failed. I'm just no good at art. I've missed too much. It's too late. That's what I kept saying to myself. It's too late. As a 15-year-old child, telling myself it's too late. It's just crazy. Like, it's too late, Michelle. There's no point doing art now. You've left it too late. And I just think, my gosh, this is why I want to record this episode, because oh my God, all these things that I used to say to myself, it's too late. I'm not good enough. I've left it, I'm just broken. This is another thing I used to say to myself all the time. I'm broken. I'm flawed. And a lot of what I missed at school was my story then for going into adulthood, when I kept failing in jobs and I found life really, really difficult. And always I would bring it back to, it's because I missed school. It's because I didn't go to school. It's because I did that. And I punished myself for years because of not going and doing that. For years and years, I punished myself. That was my story. And then I convinced myself I will amount to nothing. And there were points in my life I just thought, what is the point in me being here? I don't understand. Like, why am I on this planet? And I was lost for many, many years wondering that. Like, why? What is the point? And with no purpose in my life. And I was floating from one thing to another, struggling. Even in my jobs then, I would always get negative feedback in my jobs. I was such a rubbish person to have on the team. I would be unreliable, and I would get good feedback as well. Like, I was always happy, smiling. That was the good feedback I get. She's always smiling. But I always lacked these things, the concentration, the whatever. And so I, got to a point then in my mid-20s, and I was a bit of a mess, I have to say. I was a bit of a mess. I was, I don't like saying this out loud, but I was, taking things to help me get through life. I was drinking heavily. I was drinking every day and masking. I was trying to mask the pain and convinced myself that I can't progress in life. There's nothing that I will be able to achieve. I can't even believe when I sit here now how I felt that. I convinced myself of that. And anyway, what saved me was art. 100% art. And now when I say that word art, I can feel everything. Just I feel relaxed. I don't feel nervous. I've got butterflies in my tummy that feel excited because it was the art that pulled me out of that place. And it was funny because I got to a point where it was when I was diagnosed with dyslexia and I was told that dyslexics are creative, and I was thinking, what? That then I started to pursue art, that then led me on that path. But and I've shared this story before, so I won't go into detail, but that was what then gave me focus. It gave me something to learn. It gave me something to put my energy into. It was my therapy for healing all of those years of trauma. It was something then that I did for myself rather than trying to make people proud. I was doing something that I was proud of. Oh my gosh, that was such a big realization for me that, yes, I think it's great to do things to, get to be recognized, but to be recognized by ourselves, that is something else. To sit there and actually feel that utter pride in your own self is amazing. And so that was what art brought to me, was that pride, and it gave me that focus, and it gave me something to really understand myself. And I remembered painting, and and I knew it wasn't the best. And when I was in my class, still at that point, I still felt like I was down the bottom of the class because I was producing this art. And I remember painting this stag, and I've got the stag now still. It's out of proportion. The head is a little bit off in comparison to the body. But I remember painting that stag, and there was other people in the art class who nailed it. I think everyone else did nail it except for me, and everyone there had produced this beautiful stag painting. And I remember mine being a bit off, and no one, and I remember the feedback, and everyone was going, "Oh yeah, that's a good try. That's a good try." And I remember the teacher kind of saying, "Yeah, yeah, you've got some good stuff going on there," but and so I still thought, even after all these years, I'm still feeling that, she's all right, but in that moment though, it kind of it hurt a little bit. I will say it hurt a little bit. But all I remember actually from that time, more so than their negative comments or constructive criticism, but I took it as negative back then, was the pride in myself. I remember that. I remember looking at that stag thinking, you know what? I don't care. I did that. I can tell it's a stag. And I remember, messing around with the tonal values. So I got some, real three-dimensional feeling as well, and thinking, wow, I'm really happy with that. And I remember taking it home to my parents, and they liked it, and that felt good. And so I felt finally like I was starting to find that piece of myself again that felt fulfilled. There was many years where I felt very unfulfilled, and I was searching and searching and searching, and I didn't know what I was searching for. And art literally guided me towards happiness. And that's why I'm such an advocate for the arts, because then what happened, was this incredible journey of having something to focus on and learn, and then throwing myself into art and going to art school. And art school for me was a way of me mending the time that I'd missed from school as a child. I had a massive chip on my shoulder for not having an education, and I had no education. So when I left school, I had no GCSEs. I couldn't go to college because I couldn't get in. To a college, I'm not good enough. I literally couldn't go. So it was really hard as a child when people were going, "What college are you going to?" And I'd be like, "I can't. I'm not good enough." I couldn't get in. That was tough. That was a tough pill to swallow. I remember sitting on a bus one day, going past the colleges and crying and watching everyone going into college. And I couldn't go because I hadn't got the qualifications. So I had a massive chip on my shoulder for years about that. And so then when, even as an adult, in my job that I adored, eventually I got into a design team. Even then, they wouldn't promote me because I had no qualifications. It was like my nemesis, like, "Argh!" And so that's when I decided, you know what, I'm going to go and get some qualifications. And then it was the art. I was like, I'm going to go. I did study business to begin with because I thought that'll make me some money if I study business. But I realized I wasn't doing it for the real reason why I wanted to study. I was trying to do it because it might make me clever and it might make me some money. And I quit halfway through when it got really hard because I didn't have the motivation to get through it. I think anything in life, if you want to do something, you can do it, but you've got to have that drive. If you want to be a brain surgeon, I don't think it matters what walk of life you come from. If you have that determination, that desire, and that, real core tenacity, that's what gives you the tenacity, is that desire. And I didn't have it. And so again, though, and I felt, I failed again, I've quit something else. And I was always quitting things, but it was the art. The art is what I stuck to. And that's what led me here today. And then going on this journey of setting up United ArtSpace and having the impact. Oh, I can't believe it when I say it out loud. I wish I could show that young girl. Well, I can. She's still in me. That I sat there just thinking that, I'd never get anywhere. And so to have built United ArtSpace to what it is today and to have impacted the thousands of people, and I've written a course. I wrote a course myself. And I'm going to write a book. And like saying that out loud, I cannot still now. Sometimes I have to pinch myself. And that's why I get emotional. There's a lot about my history that makes me really unbelieve the life that I'm living today. And that's why I'm so utterly grateful and so passionate about sharing, because I've been through that. And I think a lot of the time I'm trying to help that person that I was all those years ago and sharing these messages, because I remember being desperately sad and unhappy and I had nowhere to turn. And so the message, I guess, here is, if you know anyone who's struggling, anyone who's maybe failed at something and now they're just thinking that that's the end, it's that message is for these people. I think is that there's never the end. You never know. It's such a cliche. You never know what is round the corner, and life can be designed, and that's something that I've struggled with for years, but it is totally possible to design your own life the way you want it and to feel fulfilled. Is absolutely possible. So it doesn't matter what you're going through right now, there is hope and there is a light, and you've got to keep going. And whatever you are experiencing right now, if it's bad, isn't forever, and you can rewrite your story. There's always a new chapter, and you can close a current chapter and start a new one at any point. And that's so liberating for me to now know, and also know that I can make my life however I want it. I can live simply, I can live extravagantly, I can, it's up to me, and there's no right or wrong. So there we go. That was kind of therapeutic for me to get that off my chest. So thank you for listening, if you're still listening. And like I say, if you know anyone who needs to hear this, share it with them. And I think if you know anyone who's in kind of like those desperate situations, I just want to give a big shout out now to whoever it was, Neil at the Web Compact Club, if Neil's ever still around, the biggest thank you, because this was a pivotal moment for me to start building my confidence up again. And I think if your confidence has plummeted, it's about taking those little steps to do something, and giving back to community is such a good one. Giving back, doing something that starts to lift you up again. And baby steps, those were baby steps. And art, if you can start to make your art and be proud, and have those moments of, yeah, I did that, I made that, and take everything else on board with a pinch of salt, what other people say, 'cause it's just their opinion. If you can get to that place, it's good. It's a good place to be. Thank you for listening. And yeah, that's it. I'm going to stop talking now. Take care. Bye-bye.